We have between the co-host and the host, we have a lot of years' experience. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to use the number, but everybody wants to know why the show is called Ask Brien, AskBrien. The co-host's name is Alex. My name is Peter. Why do you have Brien? Well, that's a whole another episode. But people do want to know why we're spelling Brien with an E, because most people say, hey, I went to school with a Brien, or my name is Brien, and it's Brian or Bryan. Why are you spelling it Brien? I mean, I know the Bryans down the street, and they're from Ireland, but I don't know too many people that have E in their first name, Brien. Alex, what do you got for me, our co-host?
Well, Mr. Peter O'Brien. Oh, no, you're not Peter O'Brien, are you?
I'm going down to
really.
The pub.
Well, we live there, but that's beside. Only if business is bad. Well, and when business is good, and when you celebrate 9 years. So, hey, you got to spend time at the pub.
Is it 9 years of radio or 9 years of sobriety?
9 years of sobriety on the radio, or I'm not sure of that always.
Well, Jen knows what a big tea drinker I am.
Yeah, you do throw them back. It's a little concerning.
Throwing back those Long Island iced teas?
That's what I was getting at, Alex.
I have
Yep.
Yeah, I have an iced tea every week without. I have a Long Island iced tea every week without the Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
Without the Long Island. I'm with you there. Now, there's no E in Long Island iced tea. Well, there's an E and T, but I don't think that's why you called it Brien, did you?
Well, there's also the LIE Expressway, Long Island Expressway, right? So
your New York roots are showing. But I think you really called it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry,
sir.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Think about this: the Long Island Expressway. What are those initials? LIE. What does LIE stand for? Not brutal honesty. That's for certain.
Not for brutal honesty.
Exactly. Although we are
in your profession, we never consider that. We just don't consider that.
Well, what was that movie with Jim Carrey, Big Liar or something like that?
Big Fat Liar.
Big Fat Liar, is that it?
Big Fat Liar.
Yeah.
Exactly. Although he wasn't too fat, but he was. Anyway, we have digressed quite a bit.
And there was no E in there either in that liar. So just so you know.
If you can't spell, you might spell LIE instead of AR, right?
It could happen.
For the uneducated people, that's probably how they spell it until they got spell check,
Well, it's true. Well, that's what AI is for.
Well, let's go into that a little later. But Alex, why do we have an E in Ask Brien? What's the first reason?
Well, the first reason is the respect for the person who makes it all happen, the engineer.
And the Ask Brien. Nope, not that one. There we go.
No sound effects, nothing.
My fat fingers, I hit the wrong one.
Sleeping. Maybe that engineer was sleeping on the job a little bit there.
I know.
Well, we got two engineers versus an accountant. It's pretty scary here.
I'm not good with this mouse today. It's giving me trouble.
Yeah.
But thank you, Alex. I appreciate it.
Well, it's important. But as you can see, the E's also stand for that level of enthusiasm that this show has, no doubt about that.
And what about excitement? Are you excited?
No, I have a blown eardrum after that. Thank you very much.
Well, that's what the other E is for.
But I do believe, though, the show does provide a lot of education for people. There's no doubt about it. That's a really important E on this. And who provides that education, Peter? What type of people? I'm leading you here. Come on.
I know. Experts. But, Alex, what is an expert? I'm a lawyer, and I don't understand. What is the definition of an expert?
I don't know. As a lawyer, you're going to have to tell me, because expert's a hard thing to explain, isn't it?
Well, all right. So what we will explain is that in order to really know your business, really know what you're doing in life, you typically need a minimum of 5 years experience. It takes you that long to do that. I mean, like, Alex, I guess technically you'll still be trying to become an expert at disruptive motors. Oh, sorry.
I'm not an expert in marriage after 5 years, I can tell you that.
I don't
it's been
think,
a lot longer.
I don't think anyone's an expert in
that. So.
That's far and few between. But an expert is somebody we typically say has 5 years experience. They're working 40 hours a week, typical week, and they're working 50 weeks a year. So that's 2,000 times 5 is what? 10,000. So we figure you need about 10,000 hours. Now, another E that's very big and very big on the show, entrepreneur. Okay, typically has 10,000 hours, but they usually have how long do they get to 10,000 hours? What, 2 years, 3 years? If you're taking the full 5-year plan, you probably got other issues, and that's actually one of the issues we're going to be talking about later on today, cash flow. If you're slow and you're taking that long, yes, but typically 3 years is probably the aptitude for an entrepreneur. There's a lot of other reasons, but we do have a show, really great show here, like Eddie Sullivan used to say. All right, so without any further ado, we are having, because it is the end of the year, we wanted to go over a couple of topics. Alex was going to ask me some questions, but essentially, we're going over this portion. If you have a legal entity is with an E, like a limited liability company or a corporation, or even other things like a limited liability partnership. You could have a regular partnership. Anything, you could have these type of business models. But if you have these business models, there are things that need to be done on a year. And it's not just tax, which is Alex's favorite. He loves to do the taxes. He can't wait till his taxes are coming due, and he can sit there and spend all day long working. Right, Alex?
A day, only if it's a 24-hour day there, Peter. It's about the least fun you can have in life. Root canal, taxes, about the same. Yeah.
What about watching paint dry?
Business taxes.
You don't like watching paint dry?
I'll do that. I'll do that any day. I mean, I consider, taking a couple nuns to dinner instead of that. So there's a lot of things to
do. Let's not even go into that one, especially around Christmas time. But that was some do thing. All right, so.
Well, Peter, can you help us out with one thing, though? You listed a limited liability company, you listed corporation, you listed a partnership. Now, what is the advantage over, say, something like a partnership or a sole proprietorship in doing a corporation or a limited liability company? Why would I want to do that?
So are you saying the advantages?
I actually had that question over Thanksgiving.
Oh, I can't imagine what kind of Thanksgiving you had, but... Turkey LLC. Pass the cranberry. Where's the partnership?
Pretty close.
Where's the partnership? All right.
Pretty close.
Are you? I need you to rephrase the question. Are you saying the advantages of an LLC and corporation over a partnership, sole proprietorship? Is that your question?
Yeah. I mean, the conversation over Thanksgiving dinner was, I'm looking to start a company, my own business, and I'm going to bring a partner in, and we're just either going to call it a sole proprietorship or a partnership, and we don't see the reason to spend money to be an LLC. And I said, well, here's the reasons why you should be an LLC, but I'm not the expert that you are on that. So I was hoping that if that question would be important to our audience, that we should answer that first.
Well, we're going to go over that question, but I do have to say, as a lawyer, of course, I'm biased because if you form the partnership, you'll end up in a problem and I'll make a lot of money. But having said that, let's go back to the real issue because not everybody is a lawyer and can make money off this situation. The reality is the biggest thing with an LLC and a corporation, which includes LL in it, is limited liability protection. Because the LLC and a corporation are separate legal entities, they are considered separate for most of the time for tax purposes as well. It's a separate entity. So therefore, if the corporation has an $18,000 bill to Walker Muffler Company, and they don't pay the bill, and they don't pay the AT&T bill, and they don't pay the advertising bill, and it comes out to $32,000, and they have an LLC or they have a corporation, that limited liability protection means what? It means that we can sue to collect that money if that's not paid, but in the LLC or the corporation, they can only get up to the amount of the assets in that separate legal entity. So if your separate legal entity is the Mod Squad Incorporated, I know you don't own that, Alex, but I'm telling everybody you do. If you own the Mod Squad Incorporated and they have $22,000 on the bank account, they're not making any money, and they owe $32,000 of debt, then if somebody were to sue the Mod Squad to get their money back, they can sue for $32,000, but they're not going to get anything more than the $22,000 is in the bank at that rate with a separate legal entity. Whereas in a partnership, okay, you have a different issue. In a partnership, there is no limited liability protection unless it's a limited partnership. And in the and we're talking about, most people talk about a partnership, they're referring to a general partnership. And in that partnership, you're going to have to go out there and you can collect money from either one. So if Alex and Peter are in business together and we're partners because we didn't form an LLC or corporation, and we own the Mod Squad partnership, and Alex goes out and says, you know what, Peter, I think we need to get a new washing machine for our laundromat, and we're going to get them all replaced. It's $220,000. And Alex says, you know what, for this partnership, we're going to go out and we're going to put them on a credit. And so we install $220,000. Then we can't make the payment. Well, first of all, one thing is Alex has now bound Peter because a creditor can go after Alex or Peter for the total amount. Okay, and then go after Alex or Peter individually because there is no separate legal entity set up, and so therefore Alex or Peter are now potentially liable for those obligations, as an example. So there's a huge, huge difference on this limited liability protection, and one of the main reasons why people do form entities. There are other reasons why people form an entity, but limited liability protection is probably the biggest reason. The other thing is obviously, and a sole proprietorship obviously is one person. So if Alex owns a sole proprietorship, or Peter owns a sole proprietorship, or Jen owns a sole proprietorship, and you don't pay the bills, well, you can be sued personally, and there's nobody else to go after. So if you own a house and you have a $300,000 house, and they come after you for $40,000, and you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, they can go after and collect the entire amount. They can put a lien on your house, and when you try to refinance it, when you try to sell it, or if they wanted to, they could pay off all the entire mortgage and take over the house to get their $30,000 out. So that's the main reason why people go look at other entities. The other reasons, though, are think about it as a business person. It is much, much easier to raise money as a corporation or an LLC than just yourself. I mean, you might be able to get people to help you out and invest. Usually it's going to be very, very close friends. In the case of an LLC or a corporation, it's not unusual to have an investor or a fund to help you out because they believe in the concept and they believe they can make money off of it. So it's much easier to raise money, which is also part of our discussion today, which is cash flow. How important is cash flow, Alex?
Cash is king in a business. Cash flow can either make your business or kill your business, as most of us know.
Well,
so not having cash means no growth. Having cash means staying alive and growing. So cash is king.
Well, if you want to buy more, if you want to sell more product, what do you need? Cash to buy more inventory.
You need more inventory, new cash.
Right. That's not
right. And
that can be very
reselling
expensive.
Or manufacturing or just about anything.
Almost anything. But even in the services business, even accountants and lawyers, which you may not think, what do they need cash for? Well, if they want to expand and scale their business, first of all, lawyers, how much money do you think lawyers are spending on advertising? Every time I turn on the TV, it's XYZ. I got $9 million for that car accident, right? Well, you think that's free? You think that there's no money involved to put up the ads, to run the ads, to get the people in? And then how long do you think it takes to settle a case? You think you settle it? Okay, Alex came in and he broke his leg, and I'm going to get you $500,000. And you think that's going to happen tomorrow? Or you think it's going to take a year or two? What do you think, Alex?
Well, if I break my leg, you give me $500,000. I think I'm signing up with you. We're okay. Let's go.
Right, except for the lawyer has to what? Pay his staff or her staff. They have to pay for the ads. They have to pay monies to make sure all the costs involved in the lawsuit, and even although it doesn't happen, there's a small chance that there is no recovery. So you're spending all that money, all that cash flow, and it's a services business. It's not even a business like there is no inventory per se in that type of business, but you do need cash flow there. So it's not just for inventory, right? It's to keep your business afloat till you get that big win, correct?
That's correct. What if I'm a plumber, though? If I'm a plumber, do I still need cash flow?
Absolutely. There's numerous reasons why. One is you do have an inventory, right? For instance, if I call you up at 9 o'clock at night because my toilet's overflowing and you're going to come in to fix it, okay, you need to have the parts, right? So you need to have some parts available, right? And then two is, you could be fixing and turn off the wrong valve, right? And have a flood, okay? So things can happen.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Exactly. And then plumbers, too. They're going to advertise and they're going to hire other plumbers to work. How do you expand the business? You expand the business by hiring more employees, okay, by bringing in more plumbers, more people to help that. Then you need logistics, okay. I got one in Calabasas, one in Norwalk, and one in Riverside. Well, and I have, I need to have 3 plumbers or I have to give up the business. I have to refer them out and get what I can. So cash flow matters in every business. Alex?
Yeah, I said, so you're telling me cash flow matters everywhere, but you're not telling me how do I get cash flow?
Well, okay, you can put in your own personal money, and when I say personal money, I typically say you can loan the company money. You never want to just give the company money, because with a loan you can get paid back, and when you do get paid back, there are the tax consequences associated with it. So you can loan yourself money. You can get other people to loan the company money. You can go to a bank and get what's called a line of credit. You have the ability, if you have a product that you're selling and you've got an order for 10,000 toilets and you only have $1,000 in the bank, well, you can factor it. What does that mean? You can go out and find, there are companies out there that they will buy the purchase orders from you at a percentage, and they will advance you the money so you can buy the inventory to sell the product. That's another way, right? And, there's good old-fashioned credit cards. I don't recommend at all, but you can do that. And then there are I don't even know how to call these people, but, there are companies out there that'll give you money, Alex, 78% interest, but they might break your legs, but,
And there actually are companies like that. I happen to know a few.
Wow. Anyway, we got to take a break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Like no other station in the world. Alex, were you aware of that? I didn't know that. Yeah. All right.
I didn't know that. I kind of knew it, but I was hoping it was true. And it is.
So, Alex, you had some questions because I didn't want to just go into a diatribe. Hopefully, everybody knows what that word means. And you can.
Actually, there is no. Yeah, no. I was saying that while we're talking on the subject of corporations and LLCs, there's certain advantages to a corporation and to an LLC, and I would again. Thanksgiving, if you can avoid the political talk, it's always nice over dinner to talk business, which seems to be something that we always do. We always gravitate to that. But one of the questions that came up were, the difficulty in paying yourself. Let's say you have a corporation or you have a business successful, and you're at the end of the year and you've got some cash left over. And if it's just your business, just pull the cash out because it's your business. You're a sole proprietor. You're responsible for it, and it's yours. And if you have a corporation, it seems to be more difficult to do that. And I said, well, maybe you just don't understand how corporations work. And I thought, well, a lot of people probably have that same question. So I thought maybe it would be really good with your incredible knowledge of corporations, advantages or disadvantages to having a corporation.
That's some Thanksgiving you got. I mean, I was talking about,
Cool.
I wasn't talking about world peace and politics or corporations. I was just saying, how you doing? What's going on in school? But I guess you have a different Thanksgiving approach than I do.
Well, we were talking turkey, and your name came up, but that's besides the point. We won't.
Well, and then on Thanksgiving, then you got that big knife cutting into that turkey, and it's like, no wonder you don't want to talk politics, because if you're the Democrat or the Republican and the other one is another party, that knife could be somewhere else. All right. Anyway.
Very true. Very true.
So, a couple things. First of all, if you do have a corporation, you can take money out a couple of different ways, but typically you are supposed to be an employee, right? Whereas if you're talking about a sole proprietorship, you don't need to be an employee. You can just take a draw and take the money out. So there's advantages and disadvantages because, again, the payroll taxes that you have to pay as an employee are different, right? But there's also advantages because, remember, in the case of an employer, you're getting the tax deduction on both sides, and so you're getting full tax deduction for those monies that are taken out, and you're creating some insurance. I mean, if you ever were unemployed or disabled or whatever, or certain tax deductions that you can get, there are some advantages to being an employee. Not a lot, but there are some. In a corporation, though, the biggest thing is how do you distribute money? Well, you can't distribute it every week, okay? You have to, otherwise you would be an employee, but you do have a concept known as dividend. What is a dividend? Well, that means the corporation at the end of each quarter can figure out how much money they're making, and they can distribute out the dividend. Well, there is an advantage because dividends and capital gains, okay, capital gains, if some of the shares of the company are sold, have a different tax rate than the individual. Capital gains tax rates and dividend tax rates aren't always the same as what it is when you're pulling money out. So you could, in fact, be paying a higher tax rate. And Alex, I know you love to pay higher taxes, but 99% of all Americans do not. Okay. And
really? Why not? I don't understand that. Why wouldn't you want to pay more?
Well, I mean, actually, you can speak to Mr. Mandani from the mayor of New York. He actually subscribes to philosophy. More and more taxes.
Makes sense.
Exactly. I don't even want to get there because
taxes are good, right?
Yeah, taxes are good for the government. All right, so the advantage is that by pulling it out as a dividend or a capital gain, the tax rate is going to be much different than on an individual basis. One. Two, when you're pulling money out as an individual, you still have to pay self-employment tax. Right? So if you pull out $80,000 because that's how much money is left in the company at the end of the year, okay, and you're a sole proprietor, you then have to pay self-employment tax, which is 15.3%. That's just one tax on your self-employment tax.
Wow.
So let's do the math. $80,000. Let's just use 15. We're not going to go to 0.3. That's $12,000 in extra taxes you got to pay, okay? Whereas if you pull it out as a dividend, there is no self-employment tax associated with it. So your tax rate right there, you're going to save $12,000 if you're not saving money on the fact that dividends are taxed at a different rate than your individual, okay? Or if it's a capital gain, even better, because capital gains definitely have a much lower tax rate. So if you sold some shares in the company to get that same $80,000, all right, you would only be paying a gain on the difference. So if you bought it for $30,000 and you sold it for $80,000, you're paying a capital gain tax on $50,000, not the full $80,000. And then of that full $50,000 that you're paying taxes on, the long-term capital gain tax rate is much lower. So does that answer your question?
Well, it tells me that there's some advantages to having a corporation from a tax standpoint. What are the disadvantages? Why would I want to stay with my single proprietorship if everyone needs to be a corporation?
Well, so some reasons would be you have to have, accounting records, right? Much more important. If you're a sole proprietor, you keep one set of books. If you're going to be a corporation, you have to have a corporate set of books. You'll probably have to have payroll taxes. You don't necessarily need to do that as a sole proprietor, right? So you're going to have to deal with those issues. You're going to have to pay a tax. Every state is different, but within California, you have to pay an $800 franchise tax board fee, and then you have to file a tax return for your corporation, and then after your corporation is filed, then you have to file an individual return. So now you're filing multiple tax returns, which, as an accountant, I got to say I love it. But you're not an accountant, and you're not preparing taxes. So for you, it might be a little bit more complicated. As an accountant, it doesn't bother me. That's more cha-ching, cha-ching.
Of course, why not? It's only money.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit different than monopoly money, but it is. But we're getting to our break now because we are sponsored by Legal Steps, all right? And they want to sponsor something, so we're going to be taking a break from Ask Brien, KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Jen.
And thank you to Legal Steps. It's spelled LegalStepz.com, legalsteps.com. And they offer a couple of different courses, 3 to be specific. You've got this awesome idea for a new business, and everybody's been telling you for months, maybe years, hey man, you gotta get on this. You should really put your product out there, your service out there, and you don't know where to start. Well, you can start at Legal Steps. Your very first step will be to sign up for one of these courses. You can take a course to register a trademark, form an LLC, or form an S corporation. And once you're online, once you've picked whichever course is pertinent to you and your needs, you can work at your own pace, which I think is the main draw for Legal Steps, is that whatever works for your schedule, they'll be there for you. You don't have to worry about meeting up with someone else's schedule. You've got your kids and family and spouse and jobs and all the things that you're trying to maintain. You certainly don't need to add in someone else's schedule. So once you're online, you can pause it. You can rewind it. You can come back to it later when you have more bandwidth, as the kids say. And I did it one afternoon. It was a Saturday afternoon. And I was able to, like I said, pause it, come back to it. If there was something that I didn't understand or I was a little confused about, I could back it up and listen to it again. And what I really liked about it too is that I could see my legal expert on my computer screen, and they were guiding me through each question. And so I knew for a fact that I was answering everything correctly, because certainly some of this legalese can get a little confusing, and you want to make sure that you're doing it properly so you're not wasting your time or even worse, your money. So you want to make sure that you're in the right spot. The experts at Legal Steps will do that for you. Those experts, by the way, have over 35 years experience. So if you get to the point where you're super frustrated, today is not your day, you just can't figure out this course, they'll just do it for you. So there's really nothing for you to lose. Really, if we're splitting hairs, you're going to lose $150. That's how much the courses are. Very affordable. If you're thinking about this is your business that you've been wanting to start, what's $150? Don't let that get in the way. This is your chance to finally do something with that great idea or product. Go to legalsteps.com, legalstepz.com.
Well, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Legal Steps, for sponsoring our show.
Indeed.
All right. Well, you're listening to the Ask Brien Radio. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. So, Alex, did we answer your questions, or you need more information?
I think that's really, really great information. I see a lot of advantages there, and not a lot of downside, other than that a few dollars more for certain states like California. But that really sums up why I think a lot of people should really consider incorporating. Now, the other side of it, we were talking about cash flow and corporation. So when you have cash in your company, this is a question I often get, and I kind of know the answer of it, but you have a better idea. There's cash in your company, and you want to have someone loan you money. A company loans you money. So you had mentioned before you could protect that against inventory, against assets. What if they ask for a personal guarantee? what happens there?
Well, that is a choice you have to make, and you have to decide if you want to take that risk, because personal guarantees are pretty tough. They are taking you out of that limited liability protection. But again, at least it's only limited to that amount. For instance, if you have the corporation and you have the individual and you're signing the personal guarantee, somebody may say, well, it doesn't really matter, potato, potato, I'm going to be stuck paying the personal
Yep.
obligation. However, it still is limited. Let's say you're the plumber and you buy that and you're working in a commercial premises and you send out Joe Plumber, because you're working on 3 different projects. So you send out Joe Plumber, and he's working with you, and he goes out there and he accidentally hit the water main, okay, and floods the entire building.
It's a bad day.
Yeah, and it's a $2 million worth of flood damage to the building. Okay, again, you still have that limited liability protection, and your personal guarantee will only be on the amount of money that you got. Whereas on an individual basis, you still are going to have to face the risk of, okay, now the landlord of the building, the insurance company, and everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to sue you, right? So you can avoid all that
Right.
because of limited liability protection. But yes, you are correct to a certain extent. Now, having said that, I was once involved in a lawsuit in 2000, I believe it was 2002 or 2003, and we were representing a person who had signed a personal guarantee on a lease. And they sued him because, the company didn't have much money, but they sued him and the corporation thinking, no big deal, we'll be able to collect. Well, the underlying lease was signed, and I think it was like September 1st, 1992. The personal guarantee was signed October 15th, 1992, 6 weeks later. So what happened is he got out of the business and he was no longer working there. He sold it to somebody else and he assigned it to somebody. But even when the lease is assigned, that means the lease is transferred to somebody else. The personal guarantor remains unless they allow you out. So he was still on the hook, and eventually that person, their business went under. They had an unlawful detainer, and then they wanted to come after him to collect the money on the lease. So they attempted to do that, and we went to court. And
Even though he had sold the business or was out of the business, because he didn't release himself from that. Is that
the
what you're saying?
landlord didn't release him. So when you have a business and you have a lease and you have a personal guarantee and you sell it to somebody else, that doesn't mean that you're off the hook. It only means that as long as the person you sold it to has the resources to pay, you're okay. But if they don't, they generally will not release you out of the personal guarantee. It's not 100%, but it is 95% of the times they won't. Why? They want as many people involved to collect the money. But in this case, after a 4-day trial, the judge came back and said, well, the contract was signed September 1st, 1992, and it was 6 weeks later before the personal guarantee was done, and there was no what we call consideration. There was nothing new that was offered to sign the personal guarantee. To have a valid contract, you need an offer, an acceptance, and consideration, basically money. And because they were not given anything for that consideration, and it was 6 weeks later, the judge ruled it's too far away, and so therefore the personal guarantee is not enforceable. And we won the judgment.
Wow.
So it's possible.
And you didn't have to say anything about 2 youths either, huh? Is that what happened? Or
No.
it was okay?
It was 5 Utes, and it's Y-U-T-E-S.
Inside joke there, young man.
I never heard of Joe Pesci, and I never heard of my cousin Vinny, but that's a really interesting concept. And by the way, I need to get that suit that he had, because that brown suit would look really good on Christmas. All right, so you're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS Troll 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS Troll 20 in 98.1 FM. All right. So, Alex, you had a question for me, and this is an asking question type concept. So, what was your question? It had something to do with the end of the year. What?
Yeah. This is my typical thing of I don't remember everything with my business and those things that you have to get done before the end of the year, so you don't A, go to jail, B, pay taxes, C, get bad letters. And I wanted to ask you, I think everybody would be interested in this as well. What are those things we need to do as a business for the end of the year to ensure that none of those bad things are going to happen?
So first of all, we're going to limit it to corporations. I don't want to go over sole proprietorships and partnerships, etc. Obviously, you need to close your books, right? When I say close your books, you need to go through December 31st, find out the total amount you have, and deal with your tax consequences. But the items that have to be taken care of for a corporation, one, okay, every corporation is required to have a meeting, at least one meeting per year, and minutes documenting that meeting of what was discussed and what happened. And certain big things have to be dealt with. Like if you want to pay a dividend, it has to come up in a meeting. You can't just do it yourself, even if you're a one-person entity. There's a formality that needs to be done. If you don't follow these formalities, again, same thing as before. You can lose your limited liability protection. Nobody wants to lose the limited liability protection, but you have to do it. If you want to pay a bonus, if you want to do many things, even expand your business or borrow money, okay? All these things need to be documented in your corporate minutes. Now, you can do that yourself. You can have an attorney do it for you, or there's one or two companies out there. I know Legal Steps does it, and I think there's another company. I can't remember their name. I'll remember it for next time. So there are companies out there that offer those types of services. Now, the other thing every corporation needs to have is a corporation is technically, you can't go to IBM Corporation and say, hey, are you IBM Corporation? No, it's owned by shareholders. And so in order to provide documents to a corporation, there has to be a person that will accept documents on behalf of the corporation. And for that we called a registered agent. So every corporation, every LLC must have a person that's there to accept documents on behalf of the corporation. Could be for a lawsuit, could be for state documentation, could be for the tax bureau, could be for many things. But you do have to have somebody appointed to act for that. What was the question?
Is that a person? Is that a person within the company, or is that a separate person?
So legally,
if they're going to be a registered agent,
okay, legally you could have a person in the company. You can, but what I tell people is, remember, Alex is having Thanksgiving at his house, and by the way, I wasn't invited. I'm very upset. I'm crying all day. All right, so Alex says,
as you should.
So Alex has 5 people over there. And hey, business is doing great, And they knock on the door and they go, Alex Grossman, yeah? And they hand you a document and go, you were served with a $19 million lawsuit. And Alex is like, oh, thanks, on Thanksgiving Day. See, thanks on Thanksgiving Day. Like, now I got to, and then I'm going to be upset and probably tell 5 people that what happened. And do you want it? You could be that way. You can do that. Or the other approach is, okay, somebody leaves a lawsuit paper on your staircase. You don't even see it, or if you see it, you go, "Hey, this was served on September 3rd. I had until October 3rd to file a response. I didn't even know about it." What happens? So they get a default judgment against you, right? Whereas for like maybe $100 to $200 a year, you have hired a company that has an office somewhere, Century City or Laguna Beach or Newport, whatever, and they have an office there and they have somebody that knows the law, typically, doesn't have to be, and they get these documents in. Well, guess what? They're going to notify Alex and go, Alex, you got served with this lawsuit on September 3rd. You need to find an attorney or respond to it, and we're letting you know. Well, which approach would be better? I think, for the amount of money we're talking about, a registered agent. It's not a significant amount of money. If it was $500 or $1,000, yes. For $100 to $200, better off to have somebody else there. Plus, there might be other court documents that they're saying. I think somebody's going to kill me. She just went like that.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Jen just used a line right across the neck. Okay.
The classic cut sign. No, you're good.
Well, especially Alex on Thanksgiving with that carving the
knife,
turkey
yeah.
with that knife. Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen.
Carving that turkey. Yeah.
So
Right across that neck, Peter.
Okay,
Yep.
we don't have a lot of time, so a couple other things is one is most states require an annual report. In California, it's called a Statement of Information. That has to be filed yearly. If you don't file it yearly, you can be fined, and eventually the company could be suspended, and you won't be able to do business in the state. You have to file your taxes. If you don't file your taxes, these are things that, if not done, you can lose your limited liability protection, and then be liable for that $19 million case because your plumber cut the main water main on Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica and destroyed everything. So those are all types of things. There's plenty of others, but unfortunately, my tears are coming because the show's over. Anyway, you're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM with my co-host Alex Grossman and our engineer Jen. See ya.